Hi there. We have the first people live. Hey, Austin, how are you? Where are you joining from? Hi, Pia. All right, we've got already 15 people in, and we're just getting started. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Kai. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Christoph. Adrian, Marcin. Paul from Michigan. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Vic. New Jersey. I bet it's cold over there. And Christoph from Leipzig. Hey, from the big Germany. We're waiting for Mark. He's got a technical problem, unfortunately. So he's joining. He'll be joining in a minute. Can you guys hear me fine? Is everything okay image-wise and sound-wise for all of you? Just post it on the chat so that I know that it's working. 60 degrees Fahrenheit. What is that in centigrades? Let me ask Google. All right. Thank you, Natalie, for the feedback. Great. Image also working. 2 C's. All right. 2 centigrades. Yeah, we've got 2 also, but it's a bit on the other side of the scale. So it's -2. That's 2 degrees below freezing. And it's snowed out outside. We've got a lot of snow here in Helsinki where I am right now. And Mark has just joined the room again. Hi, Gustavo. Where are you joining from? All right, guys. So as Mark gets in, let's dive right in and start talking about the topics we have to cover. We have a few topics to cover today. So we're going to talk about the roadmap to high-performing teams, and Mark is going to present the passion model, which is a model that he developed with his experience working with teams as Scrum Master. And we are going to talk about how teams become passionate. And Mark has been working on a podcast. I don't know if you guys have seen the podcast. How many of you guys have seen this Passionate Teams podcast go by your social media stream? So this is a podcast he started a few months back. He interviews people about how to bring teams to a high level of performance. And you have the bit link on the screen. Yeah, Pia, that's right. Some of the episodes are in German, so not all of the episodes are in English, but there are also English episodes, one of which is with me. So I've been on the podcast with Mark as well. And so in that podcast, he tries to explore what are the conditions that make teams passionate and also high performing. What I would like to ask you guys is that in your experience, as we go through this, in your experience, what have been the problems that have caused the lack of performance, lack of motivation in the teams? But before I do that, here's something that I would like to share with you guys. We just started our own Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and previous guests are on the Slack channel that we have set up. So if you guys are interested, you can just email me. You've got your my email on the screen, and you can join the Slack channel as well. I mean, we've got Mark in the channel. We've got Jeff Campbell, the author of Actionable Agile Tools, which some of you will see to my right here, probably to your left, if you're seeing this in reverse image over there. The Actionable Agile Tools book author, and also Markus Hammarberg, who's a fellow author also in Oikosophy, but his book is not out yet. His book is The Bungsu Story, an amazing story about how he used Agile and Lean in a hospital in Indonesia. And he's also the author of Kanban in Action. And of course, all of these Scrum Master Toolbox podcast guests are also there, so you can join and chat with them, ask them questions. And before we go there, so let's ask this question. So these are some of the problems that the people who answered our surveys have given us. So we regularly survey people that are interested in the podcast, and we ask them, so, what are the problems you face in your team? And we've got one example here. The first one, I can't get a collaborative team. They prefer to work alone. How about you guys? Like, have you guys faced this kind of problem with teams that you work with? Let's have that on the chat. Then also another problem that we got is, having a difficult time getting the team motivated and self-organizing. These are just some of the things that people face on a regular basis. Yeah, exactly, Paul. Not every team member is the same. And we have to respect difference, of course. Not everybody is the same. But one of the things that we see is that if we want to get to a level of high performance with teams, we really need to get people to learn how to work together. And, let's be honest, it's not something that all of us are able to do easily. And sometimes, exactly as Christoph said, you might be working on the same project, but not really collaborating. Self-organization is, for me, is really a symptom of collaboration working, right? Because if you're collaborating, you always need to find ways to get that going, and that means that you need to self-organize. Yeah, and as Vic said, some people just want to follow along, and that's absolutely right. So these are some of the problems. A third one that I've picked from our surveys is lack of interest in trying to make things better or improve, right? This is one example where Scrum Master position, where Scrum Master role is so important, because there is indeed a lack of interest in making things better or improve, especially in organizations where the status quo is okay, right? Just doing the things that we did before is okay. So why would I improve? And that's something that we need to take into account. But of course, as Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, our role is to help teams, team members, and teams as a whole find better ways to work. How about you guys? What have been the problems? Can you please share some of the symptoms or the problems you have seen in terms of getting teams motivated, collaborating, and reaching a high level of performance? Yeah, as Paul said, once you make real improvements, it is easier to sell. Of course, easier said than done, because if you don't get any support, you'll be like Sisyphus, pushing the boulder up the hill and then coming back down, and then pushing the boulder up the hill and then coming back down. And this is a serious problem. I just want to get my stuff done. That's so well said, Justin. I've seen that quite a lot. Yeah, I've done my part, Christoph. That's exactly. And Gustavo makes a very interesting point that problems seem to be solved for the short time, but of course the real solutions, the things that we need to put in place, they need full team collaboration. That's a very important aspect. Jeff's just tell me what to do. That's also, that if there's something about lack of engagement, that is definitely a phrase that comes to mind as lack of engagement. Technical work consumes complete focus. That's a comment by Paul, and I think that's an important aspect. I mean, think about it for a second. If we get paid for doing technical work, right, and there's always going to be a lot more work than we can do. If we want, we can work on the technical work forever and never really progress, never really get out of the rut, and just stay there and constantly churn the wheel and not really learn to collaborate. But the technical work is not really what we are paid for. I used to say in my presentations that we don't get paid to develop software. We get paid to solve business problems. And in order to do that, we actually need to learn to collaborate. So Vic, you're saying that you observe a correlation between those that think themselves as craftsmen and those that set up self-organization and make things better. Do you see that people who are interested in the crafts movement are also more likely to want to improve the way they work? Is that what you mean, Vic? Yeah, Austin, yes, definitely. We should. Thanks, Vic. Thanks for the confirmation. Yeah. So one thing that I also see, and coming to that point that Vic just mentioned, one thing that I also see is that we actually see that the people who want to improve are more likely to get these things. But we need to help others who are not necessarily in the beginning motivated to improve. We need to help them see what they have to gain as well. And actually, that's one of the strengths that I see in the passion model as Marc presents it, is that it's something that it engages because of the image, the vision that it creates of what we want to create as a team, the ways of working as a team. because in the end, nobody wants to go to work to do the hamster wheel for 8 hours and then go home and then repeat that ad infinitum. I mean, some people might be comfortable with that, but that's not how they reach that potential, their potential. The way I see it, Christoph, Christoph makes a point that, the different sides of the problem, the ones who want to improve and the ones who don't want to improve, or at least show they don't want, they don't see the time or the place to learn from each other. I totally agree with that, Christoph. So my experience has been that tools really help. The tools that we use, for example, the way we organize the daily meeting is so important in my experience. If we just stick to the default 3 questions in Scrum, what have you done? What will you do? Is there any obstacles? What I found is that the meetings turn into a how do you say, a complaining session, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I tried to do this, but, right? And then I think I'm going to do this, but it might be that I don't get this and that and so forth. And that's not really the spirit of the daily meeting. So, for example, in my own practice, what I've started to do is to change the daily meeting around goals rather than work. Yeah, exactly, Austin. Very well said. So we try to cover the daily meetings from the perspective of collaboration. And what I found is that just talking about goals increases the potential for collaboration immensely. So that instead of we talking about the exact tasks that we need to do, we actually talk about what are the goals we share, and we help each other, right? So, Christoph, one thing that you might want to try out is talk about the goal. So do you have a sprint goal, right? And if you do have a sprint goal, then what I've done is I just ask people, okay, can we meet the goal by the end of the sprint? And that's perfectly okay. If we can't, that's what we are there for. We have to ask why we can't, and then we have to find the ways to help each other. And one of the questions that I ask in the daily meeting is, do you need help? Or can you help someone, right? So if you have the sprint goal, Christoph, then what I would try to do is go with, do you think you can reach the sprint goal by the end of the sprint? And if the answer is yes, you don't need to ask anything else. It's done, right? Then do you know what you need to do today in order to progress towards the sprint goal? And if you don't, then, as a team, we can agree on what's important. And then the last question is, do you need any help from any of the people present or people outside the team, right? And that's the goal of the daily meeting, or the mechanics of the daily meeting for me, because what is important is that we actually find the reason for collaboration, and the goal, in my experience, drives that focus on the collaboration rather than the work. And this is a very simple tool, right? Just change the set of questions that you ask on the daily meeting. And that's something that might be worth trying out. All right, Paul, you said we look at the backlog during the daily, and that might be perfectly okay. That's not necessarily wrong. What I would ask, though, is, are we able to collaborate, right? Do we see evidence that collaboration is emerging? And if the collaboration isn't emerging, then at that point I would ask, okay, what can we do? What is the simplest small change that we can do to the daily meeting that would help us to collaborate? That's the idea. Yeah, Gustavo says, what if there's a lot of routine activities that need to get done, like support? It's hard to get people motivated with that. So, Gustavo, this is one example of where a goal is so important, because the goal is never going to be about the actual work items that we have, but it's going to be about serving a customer to deliver value, right? And if we focus on that, if we focus on delivering value, then it's likely, it's not, for sure, but it's likely that there's also maintenance activities that need to get done. And that's okay, because they are around that goal. And the goal allows us to shift the focus, right? Let me see if I can find a phrase here. So we did a session with one of the teams that I'm working with now, and we did exactly that. We went from looking at the backlog to looking at the goal. Let me read you what I got as feedback. So this is a team that is working on a business-to-business product. We did a session where we defined the goal for the team, and then we did all of the planning around the goal. So not through the tasks, but through the goal. We didn't talk about features, we talked about the goal. So what do we need for that particular goal? And the feedback I got was, in the retrospective for the January goal, and see that she said January goal, not January release. And this is important. Language is important for us. In the retrospective for the January goal last week, it became very clear that the focus on one goal per month was really appreciated by everyone. It helped us to have a clear focus, to prioritize work and eliminate distractions. And it really boosted our teamwork. This last part, it really boosted our teamwork, is for me the most important. She continues, as all the separate stories felt a lot more connected than before. And this phrase, all of the stories, all of the separate stories felt more connected. This is a symptom. It's not yet the proof, but it's a symptom that you're going to see more collaboration happening. And that's what we want to focus on. So one of the insights that I can share with you guys is that small changes, like, for example, changing the set of questions you ask in the daily, or changing the process of defining the goal. I have my own template for defining the goal and the process, which is really a conversation. We try to use that goal as the leverage for collaboration, and that's really important here. So Paul says we use a 6-week cadence for the demo events, and I mean that might be fine, right? But the goals need to be closer in terms of what we do on a daily basis. So what I normally tell people is that I have business goals, and then from the business goals we derive quarterly goals. So there's one goal per quarter. And then we split the goal for the quarter into 3 monthly goals. So if this is the goal for the quarter, then what should we do in January, February, and March? What are the goals for January, February, and March? And that brings it much closer to, the work that we're doing. And then with the teams, we define sprint goals. So if this is the, in this case, we're now in February, mid-February, right? So if this is the goal for February, what should be the goal for the second half of February, right? Assuming we have sprints of 2 weeks. And what I found is that this focus on the goal enables the team to go from mechanics to collaboration, right? To go from sprint planning to figuring out how to get to the goal, to go from daily reporting in the daily meeting to helping each other to reach the goal, right? And I've seen stuff like team members say, hey, I think I've achieved all of the things that I needed to achieve. Can I help someone? I've also seen people, and this was a magic moment. We were a distributed team, and we always had the mic on in both sides, right? And we were struggling with one of the goals, and we were having a conversation near the microphone so that the other guys could also listen if they were interested. And somebody comes online. It was like a Star Trek moment, right? You hear a voice suddenly and somebody says, hey, I've solved that. Yeah, I'm going to send you the information about what I've done in order to solve that problem. And this was just by accident, right? But this ability to be talking about the goals generated that conversation that was heard by somebody else on the other room. So Paul asks, does the team set goals? So the answer is yes, but it's not just the team, right? It's also the product owner. So the team and the product owner together set the goals. So we do that, for example, the quarterly goals are set with business stakeholders. The monthly goals are set with the direct customers, if we can access customers, like if it's an internal project, you can, or then customer representatives, that would be like product owner, for example. And then the sprint goals are set with the team. And typically the product owner is involved as well, but the team understands better the details and so on. So how about you guys? What have been the struggles that you have found in terms of collaboration? Do these three that I've shared here, do they ring a bell? And also, do you have questions about that? So let me know, like, what are the collaboration performance related problems that you are experiencing in your own work? So Natalie says the team thinks that those meetings are just a waste of time. What do you mean by those meetings, such meetings, as you said? What meetings are you talking about? Let's see if we can get Mark on.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. So Mark, we were just talking about what are the problems that we face. We were talking about daily meetings and how that sometimes is hard to get to a collaboration mode. We were talking about people not really being interested in improvements. Those seem familiar regarding the things you talk about in your passion model. So what do you have to share with us? Like what have been your experiences of what we can do in order to tackle those problems?
Yeah, so I had similar, I would say I had similar experiences when I was working with my team sometimes. And what I was observing a lot of times was that, okay. And so my experience was that you could see a lot of these persistence to change and persistence of collaborating in companies where the culture also didn't really fit. And the surrounding for the teams was not really there. And so I was really struggling a lot with these things. And I was just bringing in a lot of tools and other tools and more tools. And
can you give an example of a tool that you tried out?
Yeah, tools like, okay, let's do better retrospectives, right? So as you may know, I even wrote a book about retrospectives, right?
Yeah.
So there was a big belief from my point of view that if I do really great retrospectives, I will solve the problems. But of course I didn't, at least not in a long time, because there were other problems that were hindering the teams, like moving forward. For example, I was joining a bigger company and a team, they were telling me, yeah, we're doing Scrum now for 2 years. And after I looked what they're doing, they completely left out review and retrospectives. So they were just iterating without any feedback loops inside, right? So just cutting.
Because what do you think was the reason? Like, why did they drop retrospectives? And I've seen a lot of teams complain about retrospectives, of course.
Yeah, there are several things why this is a big problem. One thing is, I think that they feel that they can't change anything. So why should they do retrospectives sometimes? Right. So the environment is really strict. There's no freedom. There's no openness for trying new things. There's no culture of failures. Like, for example, they have some strict bosses sometimes telling people what they have to do. And sometimes what I also observe a lot of time is when a vision is missing. And the team doesn't really know why are we here, or what are we building. For example, I had a team where, the product managers were just throwing requirements over the fence, I would call it, right? And then they was just working in their silo, developing something. They don't know what is the bigger thing around them. So what product are we building really in the end? And then, of course, these people were just struggling and disappointed, demotivated, and so on and so on.
Goal, lack of vision,
yes,
not being bought into the work, meaning that they didn't know why they were doing it.
Yes, and one of the teams then I joined, and then they had a product owner, and then I said, "Come on, we don't have any vision now. Let's sit together and discuss what's the vision of this product we are building now, right?" So we sat into the room, and I asked him about, okay, so what is the purpose of the product now? So who's the customer? What problems do we solve? And he couldn't answer a single question. And he was in the teams already for 3 years.
That sounds familiar, by the way.
Yeah. And this was really, and it was pretty clear for me what the problem is in this team, right? They were just coming to work, everybody at 9, leaving at 5 in the evening, just doing some work, which is not really, where you can't build any passion for, because don't know who are our customers. What the fuck are we solving here? and where are we heading to, and so on and so on. It just felt like the whole thing is a waste of time, right?
So you mentioned something there I want to explore. I don't know if now is the right time. You tell me. But you said there was nothing in place that could help that team build passion. So what are like the 2-3 things you see are critical to build a passionate team?
Okay, so I believe first of all you need somehow somebody like if you talk about Scrum, you need a product owner who really believes in the product, who really knows why he's building it, and really is able to bring the passion for the product idea into the team. And this is something you don't see that often. And often product owners are just a former project manager or somebody who has just time, or is a product manager who don't have time for the team. He's just running around doing whatever and then only be there for 1 hour a week or something like that. And I think you need somebody who is able to define a great vision, the great goals, and that the people know why we are doing it, where are we heading to. And of course you need this vision in the end, of course, too, right? It has to be communicated. People need to be able to connect to this vision and be able to know why we are going this direction. So this is one thing. The second thing I believe is really important is to put the right people in a team. Most bigger companies work like that. So we have to start a new product or a new product development, and then they just look at a big Excel sheet where they have all the names. And then you can see in what percentage they're already in other projects. And they see, oh, Vasco is only 70% in project A. Let's put him for 30% in project B. And then Klaus, perfect. You are here 50% in this project. You still have 50% for the other one, right? Yeah, still 20% left with Karen. Look, just put her in this product too.
Like
right?
Resource tethering.
Yeah, it's really like they're just looking who has time, and they're just putting people in a team and then wondering why it's not working, right? And there are two problems in that.
But are those really teams, Mark?
No, of course not. So they are for me it's just a group of people.
So maybe I'm writing down on the chat the conditions. So number 1 was you need a passionate product owner, and then number 2 is you need a team that is actually a team, right?
That is actually a team, and also is passionate about the idea that is in there, right? So if you, for example, want to develop bookkeeping software, it would be nice to have somebody in the team who is passionate about bookkeeping. And I can tell you there are people who are passionate about bookkeeping, not me, but yeah, other people. Or at least passionate about technology they are using, like maybe cool web technology. We want to make it easy as possible, and whatever, user interface designers who are really passionate about building user interfaces, really to make bookkeeping really simple. Whatever, you need these people. If you don't have these people with this passion, of course, then it's a good idea to have a good passionate product owner who can maybe enable some passion in some people. But you also need to put the right people in a team who then also have maybe different strengths, and then they just come together.
What do you mean by right people?
What do I mean by right people? I believe you need some kind of diversity in a team. That's quite important. For example, I'm a quite communicative guy who's writing a new idea every 2 days, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe. Yeah. But if you have 5 marks like me in a team, nothing would really move, because we all like, oh, this is great. Oh, this is also great too. Oh, this is awesome. Yeah. So you also need somebody in the team, for example, who loves to be inspired and then really goes to work and really putting the hands down and building this product, right? And we need different characters and different people, right?
So Paul is saying, now coming back to what makes a passionate team, Paul is saying that he learned about passionate teams coaching a girl football team, a young girl football team. So maybe Paul also has some insights about as to what makes a great team. So Paul, do share that with us as well. So Mark, sorry, interrupted you.
No
you
problem.
were saying.
Yeah. So you can also see it in soccer teams, right? This is a great example, right? So why do some soccer teams exchange their coach? Because maybe it doesn't fit anymore, and maybe he's not really able to bring passion in the teams. Maybe he's not able to communicate with some players, and they have done some communication problems in there, and so on and so on. And I think pretty same applies to any development team out there, right? So you need the right people in there. You need to get, for example, this product owner I was talking about earlier, right, who has no idea about the product and the vision. So I work with management to kick him out of the team, because I could really see if we keep him in there, this whole team won't be able to breathe anymore, won't be able to develop any passion. And it took me 3 months, because he had some protectors in the company. And but finally I got kicked him out. And I got somebody in the team who was really passionate about the topic. It was really a cool product owner. And you could really see how the team was thriving afterwards. Of course, we had to change some other things too, but this was one of the major things we changed in the team. So sometimes you have to really look, are the right people in the team? And you have to have the balls to say, okay, we have to rearrange it. We have to kick some people out because there's too much conflict, or there's too much whatever pulling people down.
And actually, that's a very good point, because we hear all the time the importance of hiring the right people, right? It's like,
Yes.
you have to be good at hiring, you have to interview, and there's all of these Google tests to interview.
Yeah.
And then you go to the real world, you join a team, and it's like, who the hell put these people together?
Yeah, right. There's a nice story I heard from a guy, and he was trying to hire some great bookkeepers. So what did he do? What he said, okay, I have an invoice here, and I will just transfer money and just transfer 1 cent more than what is on the invoice. So in the end, the company that got paid got 1 cent more. And then he waited for bookkeepers calling him because he transferred 1 cent more. Because, of course, okay, so when it would be less, of course they would call. But so he said, okay, and these guys who call me because I transferred 1 cent too much, these guys I will try to get into my company. And this is really cool, I think, right? And I think you have
That's
to
a
try
real
something
test.
similar. Yeah, that's a real test, right? And I think you have to try something similar with your people, with your developers. Like, I don't know which company it is, but who try to hide applicants forms in their web code, for example, where you can see in the source code that you can apply for a job, for example. Really cool idea, because people who can really find that, they're really passionate about web development, for example. So I think you have sometimes to find some, I call it the passion challenge. Sometimes you have to find ideas. What could be something where you can really see that somebody is passionate about this job, and how could this test look like? Yeah, and then get the right people. But you're right. Sometimes it's just you're sitting there and you believe, what are these guys doing in my team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where the
It's
heck
like,
do they
why
come
would
from?
they even be put together?
Yeah.
So okay, so we've talked about passionate people, and we're slowly building the passion model here in the acronym that is. So we're P stands for passionate people, right?
Right.
In the passion model. So how about the A? What does the A stand for?
So the A stands for an adaptability, which also means adaptable to from mindset, that okay, everything we do today doesn't mean we have to do it the same thing tomorrow. So the worst thing I think that can happen is if you join a Scrum team, or if you coach a Scrum team and you join them 1 year later and they're still doing Scrum the same way, okay, they are doing Agile and Scrum wrong, right? Because they didn't adapt it in any way. They just used the framework as it would look like a process and just execute it, and then wondering why Scrum and Agile is not working. And but you also need some kind of environment in companies where they really give people the chance to try new things and new stuff, and have some culture of like, okay, if you fail, if you do something wrong, doesn't matter, you learn something out of it, and so on. And you can see that a lot of times it really is connected to the managers in such teams, right? Who sometimes build this culture of, okay, you're in a safe environment, you can try something, it's not a problem. And as soon as you have a manager who's more the command and control guy, you can see, okay, then the whole adaptability stuff is already going down, because people are really like that. No, I don't want to make something wrong, right? Because then I get kicked in my ass, and then, right, it doesn't work anymore. So
this is something that I don't remember the guy. Anyway, a guy who talked about organization and how to develop organization. One of the things, bless you. One of the things he said was that people do nothing because they get punished if they do something wrong.
Right.
right?
Right.
And if, of course, you learn pretty quickly, right? If you are punished when you do something wrong, you immediately stand back and say, no, I'm going to let you guys do something, then I'll complain.
Yeah. And interestingly is when you get a feeling for, so sometimes you see people in your company that are really like these grumpy guys, the grumpy developers, right? And I love them because most of the time, exactly these guys, they have the biggest value to give somehow. Oh, I can't see you, Vashka. I know you're coming back. And so I like to go into discussion with them to find out why are they that grumpy. And then often I find out because they have a lot of great ideas, but no possibilities to put these ideas on the street and do something out of that. So I had a chance of having a team where we built an innovation portfolio for a company. And I really was searching for exactly these kind of people, because then I was a functional manager at that time. What I tried to do, really get these people and give them the freedom and the possibility to try stuff out and really get this trust back. Like, okay, nothing's happening if I do something wrong. Perfect. And then you can see how these people are thriving and bringing lots of cool ideas into the projects, right? I can't hear you, Vashko.
But that then mean that adaptability is not something that is there, but it's something that we build, choosing the right people, passionate people as well, but also putting them in a situation that adapts to their strengths.
Right. That's right. And I think both sides are important. You need people who have this mindset that, of course, change is not something bad. Change is great. Change makes fun sometimes, right? But you also need an environment where this change can happen and they can try new things without getting kicked in the ass every time, right?
And as I look through the passion model, and one of the S's is strength oriented.
Yes.
Right. So if I understand you correctly, it's about finding the right job for the people, not the right people for the job.
That's correct. Yes. So I had a team where we had an Indian tester in the team, and we always had to come on and pushing him to move forward, right? And then I went with him together in a room and just started a discussion with him, and found out he wants to be a developer instead of a tester. He's not really passionate about testing. And it took me a while until we got him shifted into a different team. But after that, he was really like getting back into a complete different person. He loved to develop. He was even good at developing, right? And so I think it's really important to find the right job for the right people, right? This is, I think, an important thing. And strengths oriented also means, for me, doesn't mean your strength is not you're a great Java developer or a great C# developer. It's more like maybe you're more the doer type of people. Maybe you're more the communicative type of people, or maybe you're more the visionary type of people, or you can energize people, whatever. And you have to bring these right people together. There's a cool book. It's called Strengths Finder, and you can also find it in the slides afterwards in the handouts, where you can really find out for yourself. I think it's 100 questions, something like that. What are your strengths? And if you're a team lead or if you're a Scrum Master, maybe it would be cool if you try it out with your teams to find out what are the strengths in my teams, and are these people on the right position, and maybe put them in the right places. Not always easy, especially bigger companies, but at least try to get them in the right places. And this comes from Cisco. I think everybody of you knows Cisco, right? Big company who build all these network infrastructure devices. And so they did a survey in their teams and to find out, okay, what is the difference between our normal teams and the awesome teams we have? And number one reason was best of me now, which means I could really bring my strengths into this project, into this team. And that's why I'm striving here. And that's why Cisco now has a program where they're really focusing on the strengths of the people and trying to get them even better in what they are good in. And maybe not totally ignoring the weaknesses, but they're not that important anymore. So they don't have something like, okay, by the end of the year, you have to get rid of this weakness. I sent you to 3 trainings now, and then But because in the end, what you get is mediocre people instead of excellent people.
Yeah, because if you're trying to get better on the things you're not really good at, there's only so much you can do. But if you're trying to get better on the things you're already good at, you can have a huge impact.
That's true. And
okay, so if I go, sorry, go ahead.
Just look at me, sports. I was not passionate about sports in school. I hated sports.
Hey, Mark,
especially when you had a high bar. Huh?
Yeah.
Now I'm a
great runner, but we would like you to do downhill skiing now.
No chance. I think I was 7 years old. I was just on the skis and just fall one time and said, "Oh no, skiing is nothing for me," and I just stopped skiing. This was my story of skiing, right?
But it sounds so obvious when you transpose the same thing to another context, right?
Yeah.
But we hear so often, hey, you're very good at, for example, you're very good at facilitating meetings, but we really need a coder. So why don't you start coding?
Yeah. Why? Come on, let's do it.
Yeah, Austin, manage people's strengths and play to their strengths. By the way, I hope I was able to send you to a survey by Gallup. It's called Strengths Finder, and that's also the name of the book that they have as a companion to that. And it's a great way to find what the strengths are for your team. It's really definitely a very useful survey.
And also for yourself.
And for yourself as an individual, of course, because we need, the first team member we have in our teams is us. We need to put ourselves in the strength position, not in the weakness position. Yes. But when I look at the passion model, we also have I for independent. What do you mean by independent?
So independent, I mean, and this also applies to the freedom thing, right? So I think it's really important that people can choose the way they are working and can choose the tools they like to work with. I think it's pretty clear that when you're in a bigger company, you can't buy 100 tools for everybody. That's pretty clear. But I think the other way around, where you just buy one tool for everybody, is also the complete wrong thing to do. I think you need to have some kind of independence where people can choose the right tool for them, which works best for them, instead of just telling them you have to use Jira, for example. Everybody has to use Jira because that's the best tool we can use. And I know a lot of people who are struggling a lot with Jira because it's so big and so many configuration options and so on and so on. And for them, stickies on the wall would be just fine, right? And then, but you have then the other people who say, come on, Jira, it's not mighty enough for us. We still need this interface and this interface. So in the end, you have a really big tool, but nobody's really happy because everybody has something that doesn't really make sense. Or if you have a global product development process, right, where everybody has to adhere to the same process. And the bad thing about processes is that usually you have somebody who is in charge for the processes, right? And usually version 1.0 is not that bad. It's okay. It's quite lean in the beginning, right? But what do these guys do afterwards? I can tell you they are building version 2.0, right? And what happens, it's getting even bigger. And then there's a version 3, 4, 5, and in the end, this process is just totally killing you. And instead, I think it's really, really important to have something like a really lean process. For example, just checklists, right? So what is if you're in the medical area, of course, you have to adhere to some norms and standards and so on. But in most cases, it's just okay if you say, okay, there is a checklist you have to adhere to. Just try to get all the checks here. How you do it doesn't matter for me. Just do your job. You know how to do it, right? And then you still make sure that all the things are there, but you don't build. In the company I was working, we were building complete IT systems for making videos and images during surgery in the operation room. But the same company was also developing scalpels and screwdrivers for surgery. But we all had to use the same process. What a great idea, right? Yeah. And it killed us totally. We spent 60-70% of time just adhering to processes, right?
If the process works for building houses, why wouldn't it work for building software, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing. We're just building something, right? So it's the building process. It was just ridiculous. really.
Okay, so we're running out of time. So let's go through the last
Yes.
two aspects of the passion model, and the next is O for oneness. What does oneness mean in the
oneness.
passion model?
So oneness means, you just said it earlier, right? So this is sometimes you just have some group of people, and from the outside they call them team. But when you look at them, you just see this is just a bunch of individuals doing their work, and there's no oneness, there's no team, they're not really together, right? And unfortunately, a lot of companies don't spend money on building a real team. Just simple things like going in the pub and drink some beer together after work. It's ridiculous difficult to get the money back if you do something like that. Because come on, 200 euros for some drinks? That's really expensive. You can't do that, right? And I think it's really pretty important that you have some ideas and things which helps the team to really come together as a team, that you build some oneness, that there's no finger pointing and blaming anymore, that if something fails, they say, okay, we failed as a team. We together will get rid of the problems we currently have. And we won't blame Marc or Washko for just killing the nightly build. We just say, okay, shit happens. We will just get rid of the stuff and just work as a team together to get out of this failure, right?
So, but what I'm hearing is that oneness is it's more than cohesion, which is what Austin said, but it's about kind of having a sense of belonging, that, you know, I'm invested in the success of my team.
Yes, stuff like that. And there are cool tools like the personal maps. You may know them, right? Which is an awesome tool, which doesn't cost any money, just maybe 1 or 2 hours together in one room.
And you don't need to pay any tool vendor to use a tool.
You don't need
a personal map. You just have a piece of paper. And actually, on that point, Vic had a question, which I think is a great question, and we need to tackle. Is okay. I'm hearing that what you need is to be able to pick, handpick people, handpick tools, and so on. But that's not my reality. So how do you handle this in an organizational constraint like Jira? Let's take the tool specific as an example, because tools are dictated to a certain extent by the organizations we work with. So tell us a few examples of how you can be diverse about the tools without breaking the policies that you have in the organization.
Yeah. So what I've found out is, especially in bigger organizations, sometimes you just need to use your own tools and don't tell anybody in the first step. And then when you're successful, then tell them, yeah, we did it, but we used not the tools we had you told us to use. We did use something different, right? But it's true, in bigger companies, sometimes it's really, really difficult to choose your own tools.
Okay, so I have an example regarding Jira specifically. So I was working in a team, and we had to use something like Jira. It was even worse. This was the end of the 90s, beginning of 2000s. Jira is heaven compared to the tool we had to use back then. What we did was very simple. We actually managed the work on a big wall with Post-its and so on. And then one of us, typically me, because I was the product owner for that team, one of us spent time adding the critical stuff into the tool. Yeah. So, for example, stuff that we found out during the sprint and solved during the sprint never made it to the tool, and nobody cared, right? But stuff that we found out during the tool and then had to go to another sprint or even another team, then we used the tool for that. So we followed the policy. We didn't break the policy, but we didn't do everything through the tool. We did a lot of stuff, just our team using our own board and Post-its.
It's the same when you have to use, for example, a Microsoft project server, where you have to put some project plan in there with some Gantt charts. So what we did, for example, we just had a big Gantt charts where we just added the sprints. And we just did sprint 1, sprint 2, then 3, and this was everything we just did. It just adhered to the policies. Everything they need to know was, okay, this is finished here, and here, this is the start, and so on and so on. And internally, we were just using our tools and doing sprints and so on, but we still adhere to the policies in the end. So I think but you need to have the ball sometimes to just do it like that, because okay, it's not really, really like that. And then again, it's, I think, important that you have some manager who protects your back and tells you, come on, yeah, let's just do it like that.
You mean
For
you have
example,
a Scrum Master?
I have a Scrum Master, for example, yeah. For example, when I was a functional manager, I had one guy in my team, and he was just asking me if he can work from home from time to time, because he had to travel through his hometown to the other location where the company was based additionally in Germany. And then when he got back to Switzerland, he always drove through his hometown. And I said, come on, it doesn't make sense for me that you are 1 hour more on the street. This time you can use for just working from home and do the same stuff. But the internal policy of the company was no home office. It was not allowed. Nobody was allowed to do home office. But I just protected him. I know he will do his stuff at home. I had no problems with giving him the trust of that he will like result-oriented workplaces, right? And but if I would have asked my boss if it's okay to send him to the home office, of course I would get a no, and then I would be in trouble. So my thing is, do something, apologize later. Right?
Yeah. And of course, I mean, we're not talking about breaking the law. That's not what we are talking about. We're talking about sticking to the spirit of the law and the policy, but not necessarily doing all of the small little details that you might need to do if you wanted to take that policy, to its full extent.
Or this global development process I just talked about, what I did was just, okay, what are the documents I need to have in the end? It doesn't matter which phase I have to create them. I just started my project and just took care that the documents are there in the end. Everything is fine. And then I didn't adhere to any process internally. But at every gate, I had all the documents they needed to have, all were signed, and then they were happy. So it's just, you need to be creative.
And the last part of the passion model, which has changed, I've noticed from the initial versions, is never stop learning.
Yeah, I think it was nimble in the beginning. Now it's never stop learning, right? Because nimble was not so clear. And I have a story. I wanted to go on a developer conference a few years ago, my company. And it was really cool, workshop days and so on and so on. And I asked my functional manager if I'm allowed to go. And he said, I can't decide that. You have to go to our location manager. I said, okay, I will go to the location manager. I got there one day later or something like that and asked him, come on, I want to go to a conference. I want to learn something new in development. Yeah. And he told me, sorry, I can't decide that you can go to the conference. You need to go to the global development head. I said, okay. And of course,
that was 2 levels above you?
Yeah, 2 levels above me already. So I tried to get a date. I got one 2 weeks later, something like that. I went to his office. I talked to him about his cool conference and what we learned there and so on and so on. And then I asked him, can I go? And he said, I can't really decide if you can go to the conference. And that's a true story. I'm not joking. It's a true story. And in the end, he's really sent me to the CTO of the company. Of course, it was not easy to get a date with him.
Above?
Yeah, 3 or 4 levels already, right? So the functional manager, the location manager, there's a global head, and then the CTO 4 levels above me, right? So, and of course, I got a date, I think maybe 1 month or something like that. And I went to his office, and then he just told me, yeah, okay, you can go to the conference. And that's from somebody who maybe has the least knowledge of what I'm really doing in my work, right?
And it's probably a waste of time for that.
And fun fact was, the conference was already over. Yeah, awesome. So
okay, so we have. Sorry, go ahead.
Just let me finish. And then the good thing was half a year later, this conference was again. It's a conference this Basta conference. Maybe you know them in Germany, Basta, C# conference, and was a half a year later. But they raised the prices a little bit. Now I was thinking, should I really run the whole thing again to get $50 more to go to the conference? So I skipped the workshop days. And where do you learn the most? In the workshop days, right? So what I want to say is you need to be able in the company that it's really pretty easy to gain new knowledge as a developer. If I need a book, I want to have it in 2 days. If I want to go to conference, of course, you can go to a conference, not 10 times a year, it's clear. But if I just want to learn something, it should be pretty easy for me to gain this knowledge without any impediments in between to get to this knowledge, right? And the other thing is they need also people that know, the world is turning and it's turning faster and faster. I have to learn. I can't stop learning. I think these two aspects are really important.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have 2 questions already, and we're going to go to the questions right away, guys. I just want to tell you that you can go to this link that you see on the screen now, and you will be able to download or you will get an email actually with both the passion model description as well as a self-assessment sheet, which I think is great for the questions that we have right away. So the link, you should have gotten it now through the tool. But the basic idea is that you will get the description of the model in more detail as well as the self-assessment sheet. Now, the 2 questions we have, I'll start with Vic's question first. And the question is, how can I follow Marc's ideas and model within an existing organizational constraints and system behavior? Now, this question is very important, but I do want to make it a little bit more specific. And Vic, if I'm getting it wrong, please do correct me. But I want to make it very specific. And let's start with the passion model's first aspect: passionate people, right? Okay, so I work in an organization. People have been put together from different places to work on this project. How the hell do I get passionate people? The people are already there.
Right. So where I always start, for me, one thing, and sometimes the most easiest one, I hope at least, is to look, is there already some kind like a vision? Is there a strong vision already available? Because sometimes if this is something you could put in place, this is something where you can also energize the people that are already there, right? Even if you have a team that maybe doesn't work that well yet, it can help to look into, is a vision available? Is it something that really engaging people? If it's a vision like, okay, raise the EBIT for 2% by the end of the year, of course, this is not really a vision that is really raising a passionate teams, right? But if it's like SpaceX, enable a self-sustaining civilization on Mars, this is something, wow, really want to go to Mars? That's awesome. Of course, you don't get it in all the companies' visions like that, but I think this would be, for me, the number one step if I start with some teams is I look, is the vision available already? And if not, I try to get it somewhere and get people together. And
so let's tackle that, because that's actually Christoph's question. Christoph asks himself, maybe my team is just lacking vision and I need to get back to the POs again. So let's assume that that's the case and help Christoph out. So where would you get started to find that vision?
So there's a great tool, which is the product vision board, right? It's from, what is this guy?
Roman Pichler.
Yeah, Roman Pichler. It's in the slides too. Roman Pichler. And what is really cool in this slides is it's not only asking for what is the vision, it's really asking for what problems are you solving, where are your customers, and all these different tiny questions. And really this helps to spark a conversation with your product owners, really ask them and get a discussion running about these topics. And I really, really like this tool and I'm using it a lot. And as I said, I was sitting in a room with the product owner, right? And he couldn't answer any of these questions. Then you have something, you can go to the manager and tell them, come on, this guy, we can't use him in our product team anymore.
So can I translate that? I'll try to use my ability to synthesize here. Ask the product owner the basic questions on the vision board.
Yeah.
If you see that there's a vision inside the product owner, help him or her get it out and communicate it to the team.
Right.
If that doesn't happen, then ask yourself who started the project, and maybe they have a vision, so I should go to them and ask.
Right.
Is that something of, a series of steps we could follow to find the vision?
And sometimes it makes even sense to stop a project because there is no market, there is nothing we can do with this project, and then just stop it. Stop it.
Absolutely. And that's actually a very good point, right? Sometimes not doing a project is the best thing to do.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
All right, so I'll put the link up again. So for those of you, if you want to go and download the self-assessment sheet and the detailed description of the model, but we've got a few more minutes for you guys that have specific questions, and Marc is here with us, so let's have those questions. I'll actually start with something specific that comes from one of the questions we got very early on. When I was looking at the surveys, people were saying, okay, I can't get my teams to collaborate. They prefer to work alone. And as I was talking with our attendees, our audience here, that's a topic that came up early on as you were trying to join. So Marc, using the passion model, you're faced with a team that, they're really loners, they're not really collaborating well. Where do you get started to find out why the team isn't collaborating, and what might be things we can get from the passion model that can help enable that collaboration?
So I think the first thing I would look at, do these guys have a chance to sit in one room? Because what I can see a lot of times is that people are spread in the whole company, and then they're assigned to a project. And of course, then maybe they have 2 or 3 other things on their plate. Then of course, they're not really want to collaborate anymore, because they also have a lot of other stuff going on. But if you can get them into one room already, this helps a lot to spark conversations in the team, and then maybe get something like that. Then I would start using really visual stuff on the walls. Even if you have to use Jira or something like that, really start to use a board on the wall where people can stand in front of and discuss what is happening to this task, what can we do here, and so on and so on. This is something which is really, really important for me. And another big problem I see a lot is that people are not assigned 100% to the team. They have other stuff on their plate. Then talk to the managers if there is a possibility to get them out of some other projects, that they can come into your projects and spend more time with you. And as I said earlier, invest in some oneness events, right? So
what does that mean, by the way?
For example, then just say, even if I don't get any money from my company, I will invest, let's go for bowling in the evening. When do you have time? And just try to get people out of the comfort zones, out of work somewhere, and spark maybe some private conversations going on, something like that. Or do something like I said earlier, personal maps, where you just ask people to draw the personal maps and then sit together in a room together and then just see who are we and what is interesting about the other people in my team can help. And or sometimes can happen that this is just happening because there's one guy in the team who's just pulling the whole team down. And then in this case, you have to tackle this guy in a one-on-one conversation to just find out, okay, what's driving him, what is happening to him, why is he behaving like that, and then try to solve the problem from this perspective, for example. Again, like always, it depends.
Well, so the it depends part is very important. Not one tool does not necessarily fit everything,
right?
Every context. But one thing that I wanted to run by you is that actually, okay, the passion model is kind of a mental model, right? What are the things? What is the checklist of things I need to go through to make sure I'm building a passionate team as a Scrum Master, as an Agile coach? But the tools that we use are very important. So, for example, one of the second problem here that we got from the surveys, I'm having a difficult time getting the team motivated to want to be self-organized. So I see this a lot. I see people focusing on, I want them to self-organize, so I'm going to push self-organization into them. And the way I look at it is that, okay, yes, self-organization is an outcome that will be positive for us, but I'm going to ask myself, what are the tools I have in my toolbox that I can take out and try, because they might not work, but I can try them out and see if that helps with self-organization. I mean, there's a reason why the podcast is called the Toolbox, right? Because as Scrum Masters, we need to have millions of tools in our toolbox to be able to adapt to the situation, right? So the way I look at it is the passion model is kind of a description of what are the things that I want to see in the end.
Yes.
But then what you are doing now with the podcast and writing the book with Oikosofi, hopefully, you haven't decided yet, but maybe, is to say, okay, these are the great tools if you want to focus on finding and enabling passionate people to make a difference. Is that how you see it?
I think what is really important for me, and what is something I found out in my life as an agile coach and Scrum Master, is it's not about the tools, it's about principles and people. And if you need to have some cool vision in your teams, then there are, of course, plenty of tools you can use to get there, and maybe plenty of problems why you don't get there. And as you said, right, this is like a checklist. Where do we have the biggest problems at the moment? And then you try to find ideas and tools how to tackle these areas to get better, right? Hopefully you're not bad in all of the 7 areas of the passion model. Hopefully.
Or if you are, you can always you always have the chance of finding another job.
Yeah, that's true.
So, for example, one tool that I've used for self-organization, which I was describing before you joined, is just set a goal. And it doesn't need to be a vision yet, like set a sprint goal. And just the sprint goal will enable the team to self-organize around the goal. Obviously, they are part of defining the goal. Like you can't give them the goal. They have to define the goal together with the product owner and Scrum Master and maybe other teams if they need to talk with other teams. So having a concrete, specific, measurable goal is one tool I have used successfully to obtain a self-organization system. How about you? Like, what are tools that you have used to help teams find the reason and the motivation to self-organize?
Sometimes people don't know why they should self-organize. What's the benefit of being self-organized, right? So a game I'm using sometimes is the human knot. You may know that one, where I try to get 10 people like building a knot. So just by using hands and crossing hands and so on, and then we have a knot. And then I have one guy who tries to solve the knot. So people are not allowed to move without somebody from the outside telling them where they have to move. And it takes ages until this knot is solved. And the second round is like, now we are self-organizing team. Everybody's allowed to move on their own. And you can see how this human knot is really solved like that. Because everybody knows their situation, their place. They know exactly how they have to move now. And you can really see how this human knot is really solved. And this is sometimes an eye-opener for people that, especially for some project managers sometimes, that it's better to trust in people that they know the situation and know how to take decisions than to try from the outside to tell them what they have to do exactly, right? But of course, sometimes you have people who don't want to self-organize. They want to have somebody who tell them what they have to do. Can happen too. I know a lot of companies where people left because Agile was introduced and they didn't really fit into this culture. Then it happens. It's the worst case, I would say.
And that's something we are not supposed to solve anyway, because that's a personal preference.
Yeah.
We're not there to fix people. We're there to fix the way we work.
And I said, sprint goals, vision, something like that. How can you decide on your own which step to take when you don't know where to go? So I think it's really important to define a goal, a vision, something like that. Then self-organize goal.
So guys, I don't hear any more questions. I'm just going to show this slide again. Remember that you can email me and join our Scrum Master Toolbox Podcast Slack channel. And that's a way to talk directly with Mark and Jeff and Marcus and myself and other Scrum Master Toolbox Podcast guests. They're all there. And also, don't forget that we have a podcast now by Mark, not all in English. There's some German episodes, so be aware of that. But there are also English episodes specifically focused on passionate teams. Can you, Mark, give us a few words on the podcast and what you've learned so far from that?
Yeah, this podcast is really, really interesting because I'm talking with different people from different industries, how they enable passionate teams in their context. And it's really, I have agile coaches on there. December, I had one guy who is caring for older people, and which is, I think, one of Germany's best employers. And it was really interesting for me in this area that there can be passionate people too who are caring for older peoples in a, I don't know what's the English word for that one, home for old people where they, I don't know.
Yeah, care homes.
Care homes, I think, I'm like that. And you can really see, okay, now I have to clean this old lady and so on. It's not maybe the dream job of most people, but still he was able to build a working place where, for example, he was also building like little, I don't want to say squad like in Spotify, but it's like that. Little teams who had a special thing where they were really motivated and allowed and empowered to work on their own, take decisions on their own. And he was really taking himself completely out, just told them, I need something like that. This is more or less direction I give you. And then he tried to encapsulate little small teams who are caring for something. It was really interesting. And you could see a lot of these principles can be applied to our areas too, and so on. And what I'm trying to do at the moment, I'm trying to talk to even more of these European best employers, just to hear about their secrets and what they're doing. And it's really, really interesting.
Absolutely. So for all of you, great resource to get ideas and inspiration, especially for those of you that also speak German.
Yeah.
So Marc, hey, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Despite all the technical problems, we did go through a lot of stuff here, a lot of valuable ideas and insights. So why don't you share with us where people can find out more about you and where you hang out besides the Slack channel, so that people that are interested can contact you?
So I think you can, of course, you can go on my homepage, marcloeffler.eu, where you can get some info about me, where you also find me on Twitter. It's just Marc Loeffler, one word altogether. For example, I'm tweeting a lot on these topics. I'm usually speaking on Agile conferences all over Europe, where you can see me, I think, next time in April on the Agile Serbia conference in Belgrade. Will be my next Agile conference this year. And this is where you can find me and talk to me. And and then just try to get in contact with me over my homepage or via Twitter, and then we can just chat and exchange ideas.
Excellent. And don't forget to download the self-assessment sheet that has very concrete things to look at and to reflect on where your team is. And listen to the podcast to get ideas on tools or get in touch with Marc. So Marc, thank you very much. And thank you guys. Thank you very much for joining us, and keep those questions coming over email on the Slack channel. Let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, thanks for your patience for me struggling with my technical. We started half an hour before the whole thing started without any problems. And then just 5 minutes before we started, everything crashed. I don't know. It was just pain in the ass. But thank you for staying and be here with us.